I'd like to call our meeting to order. This is a special council meeting held tonight on Monday, May the 12th, 2014. And at this point, I would ask if there's any members of council that have any declaration of interest. Councillor Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll declare an interest on anything within the presentation that has to do with the UISS, as I live near the current sewage lagoon, and that may be a backup location until they have finished deciding where they're going to put it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have asked York Region staff to come tonight and talk about the many projects that are taking place within the town of East Gwillimbury. It is going to be divided into two presentations. I know that the ads were sent out in our paper for at least the last couple of weeks, and I know social media has been quite busy, and I believe that York Region also has sent out a number of notifications. Not that we can get everybody, but we'll give it a good try. And knowing that we wouldn't have everybody out tonight, we are also videotaping tonight. And the videotaping will be placed on our website so people can hear the presentation, they can see the presentation that's taking place, the questions that will be asked later on, and certainly have an opportunity themselves, even if they're not in the audience tonight, to seek out information further at a later date. So we hope that we'll answer a lot of the questions that we get regarding the region and the amount of projects that are taking place throughout our municipality. Growth is coming, and we know that with that there's a lot of infrastructure that's taking place, and the majority of it is the responsibility of the region of York. So with that, I'm going to ask our clerk if you could introduce our first, our presentation. Oh, I might say also, the intent would be to, members of council will be asking questions, and I know that people have questions they've prepared, and I'm sure there'll be things as we come along. If people in the audience, if you haven't had your questions answered by the end of the evening, if you'd like to write them down and submit them to the clerk, we have a communications person from the region of York that is here every Thursday, and is here to answer questions from our residents on regional projects. So I hope that that's the right way that we can do this, and hopefully I know that I've had residents ask me if I would ask a couple of questions, so I imagine that's happened with other members of council as well, and hopefully the questions that you have will be answered tonight.
Through you, Madam Mayor, good evening, members of council. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I'm just going to make sure that this works, and it does. It's great. My name is Mike Ribot. I'm the Director of Capital Planning and Delivery for York Region's Environmental Services Department. With me tonight, I have staff from Environmental Services as well as Transportation Services. I'm going to be providing a presentation on the status of water and wastewater infrastructure projects within East Gwillimbury at this time. I'll be taking some questions, and then transportation staff will be coming forward and delivering a presentation on transportation-related infrastructure projects, as well as any traffic-related matters. With me this evening from Environmental Services, I have Brian Wolf. He's our Senior Project Manager responsible for the Upper York Sewage Solution Project. And we have Nick Colarusso, Engineering Manager. He'll be responsible or overseeing the Upper York Sewage Solution Project, as well as the second concession infrastructure works. Another Senior Project Manager, Claudio Michelli, could not be here this evening, and he'll be another key individual on this project, or in these projects, I should say. This presentation is essentially going to cover the infrastructure works within second concession, outside second concession, and then I'm going to talk about the Upper York Sewage Solution Project and the Water Reclamation Center and the schedule going forward for that project. This will be based strictly on water and wastewater servicing projects. This slide is essentially a plan view of the works ongoing in East Gwillimbury at this time. You can see through the main corridor of second concession the infrastructure works making up sewers, force mains, and water mains. You'll see the elevated tank at the north end of this slide. Now, these works are an interim solution, so these are going to service growth out to about 7,000 people until the Upper York Sewage Solution EA and project is complete. So this servicing study and solution is bringing sewage south through the Newmarket Sewage Pumping Station, and this will ultimately be treated down at the Duffin Creek Water Pollution Control Plant. The total cost of these interim works is approximately $140 million. The majority of this cost is covered by prepaid development charge credit agreements, and a small portion is being recovered on the water side from development charges. The work's being done through 7 different contracts, so you'll see a lot of activity happening over the next summer and the next year, and various different contractors working through the municipality. You've probably seen this tank north of Queensville Road, just east of Leslie Street. It's up now. It's been up since 2013. It's been commissioned. It's in service. It's one of the water tanks that have gone up. It's worth noting as well that the Holland Landing tank was also recoated and repainted over the last year. So you've probably seen some improvements to that tank as well. The next 3 slides is just basically a status on the 3 new sewage pumping stations that are being delivered through the second concession works, Holland Landing, Queensville, and the second concession pumping station. Two contractors, Condrang's doing 2 of the sewage pumping stations, and Metco's doing another pumping station. These are all anticipated to be done late Q2 in 2015. You'll see some of the pictures there, just basically showing the large shafts or shoring systems that are supporting the wet wells of the pumping stations. It's where the sewage basically comes in, and it's pumped from those wet wells back out over to Second Con, where it flows south to the Newmarket sewage pumping station. So for works outside of second concession, these works were all tendered as part of one contract. The contractor is North Rock. These works include the force main coming out of the Holland Landing sewage pumping station, which goes back to second concession. You'll see a picture of Yonge Street there, where some of the traffic controls are in place. You'll see at the south end of this map is also where there's works, water works and sanitary works going along Green Lane. That ultimately goes through Newmarket down to that sewage pumping station, as I discussed, to divert flow south to the Aurora sewage pumping station. And the Sharon trunk sewer is just getting underway, and obviously that's a gravity sewer that's taking flows from the Sharon area as far east as approximately Leslie, and takes flows again back down to just north of the Second Con pumping station. The one thing that's important to note about all these projects is they are part of the ultimate solution for the Upper York project. So none of these are a lost cost. They will be borne into the final solution going forward. That is the intent. And then you probably know the second concession works. This was tendered as part of the road works. You're going to hear transportation staff come forward and do a presentation on the status of that work, and that'll be completed through one project. And you'll see that there's various water, wastewater, force main, and gravity infrastructure being put in place through that corridor. I'll move on to the Upper York Sewage Solution Project. This project was born out of the need to accommodate growth to approximately above 150,000 people, accommodating Aurora, Newmarket, and East Gwillimbury. You can see the map here. You can see the blue line that circles the map or squares the map. That's essentially the study area that was included looking at this project to accommodate growth. And we looked at various solutions as to a large sewer being drilled down to the YDSS, and obviously some of the other more innovative solutions, including a water reclamation center. So right now, we're in the tail end of an environmental assessment, an individual environmental assessment. It's been going on since 2009. We basically submitted a draft environmental assessment to the ministry in May of this year. From that comment period, we received a lot of comments. The ministry has gone through them, and they've submitted to us their final comments. So we now have to take those, attempt to address them in our final EA document, and that'll be filed, we're hoping, in June of this year, depending on those comments and how they have to be addressed. Basically, this has gone on for 5 years, so this would be a culminating point. Now, we don't anticipate hearing back from the ministry in probably sometime in 2015 on a final outcome of this EA. So if you look at the final solution as it relates to some of the numbers, you'll see that the majority or all the growth that's going to happen in Aurora will be accommodated by the YDSS. In terms of growth in Newmarket, you'll see that about 3 megaliters will be sent down the YDSS, and another 5 will be treated by the ultimate proposed water reclamation center. And then all the growth in East Gwillimbury will be focused at the water reclamation center, which is about 28 megaliters per day, and that accommodates the overall 90,000, I think, that's projected. And I should include that there is linear infrastructure to be included as part of the York-Durham sewage system that will also help accommodate the flows that are to go south, so some twinning of force mains and some pumping station upgrades. So this is kind of ultimately, I mentioned that the existing interim infrastructure will be part of the overall solution. This is what's being proposed right now in terms of a preferred location for the Water Reclamation Center at the north end of the project, just south of Holborn Road. To the east of Second Concession, and that'll ultimately release effluent into the Holland River. In terms of project timelines, you can see that we're in May 2014. We intend to submit the IEA later this month or into June, as I stated. We are going forward at our own risk to retain a engineering consultant to go through the design of the water reclamation facility, some of the phosphorus offsetting ponds, as well as the YDSS linear works. We'll go through that process, and we hope to be completed construction late in 2018 based on the current schedule going forward. So that's just a slide to show you more information on project contacts and staff and for communication. That's all I have for that portion of the presentation. I try to make it brief, so I'm sure there's going to be questions. And I'll open it up to any questions that I or my senior project manager here, Brian Wolf, can answer.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that there are questions. I see pens here. I'll take questions now, and if you want to come back after other people have asked, then certainly can do so, members of council. And also at the end, if there's something comes up that spurs a question later on, even if it isn't in this section, at the end of the evening, we'll go back and go over all of them one more time. I want to make sure that everybody has ample opportunity to get the answers that they require. So. Councillor Eaton.
Thank you very much. I have two questions. The first one is with regards to the decommissioning of the water tank in Sharon. I was told that it was going to be decommissioned after the other tanks were up and running because it's kind of an eyesore. It's very rusty. Is there a schedule set for the decommissioning of that?
Yes, the Sharon elevated tank is proposed to be decommissioned this year. We're in the process of reviewing that design, and will be decommissioned 2014 or into Q1 2015, but it is part of the plan now that that tank is in service. It's no longer needed. It's coming out of service and being decommissioned.
Thank you very much. The second question is with regards to the EA approval for the Upper York sewage solutions. There's a possibility this could be delayed if we have a change of provincial government, which ends up stretching all the way out with regards to development beyond the current situation that we have that accommodates up to 7,000. But after that, if there's a change in government and you have a new environment minister, they might want to relook at everything all over again. Has that been taken into consideration?
I mean, absolutely, in the sense of it is a new government. It will be a new minister. Our intent is to move forward with the schedule. We will be submitting. Staff will be doing their review from the province. We'll be addressing their comments. I suppose with a new minister, there may be new conditions or new questions that come forward. If it does impact the EA or there's further that's requested of us, we'd have to address that at the time. Right now, all we can do is wait for the election to occur, wait for the new minister, go through our process, and make sure we respond to all the comments in an adequate manner, and work with ministry staff on the approval of the IEA, which we'd still anticipate it to be complete in 2015. And you're right, there could be a change in thought, perhaps.
Councillor Morton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr. Rabeau. Mike, I've been asked a number of times, is there any particular reason that the discharge from Newmarket, the 3 is going south, the 5 is going north into East Gwillimbury out into Lake Simcoe, or at least through the Reclamation Centre? Is there a particular reason why that's happening rather than it all going south?
I'll try and answer that question, Brian. If I'm incorrect, you can correct me, but That is the maximum capacity that's available to the existing YDSS system with the small changes that can be done. I think when the EA began, one of the potential solutions was a large trunk sewer that was to carry sewage south to the YDSS. So had that been done, it could have accommodated a lot of that capacity, including the requirements from East Gwillimbury. But with this solution, the 3 megaliters is the max that can be taken on within the parameters of what's being constructed. So I think it was studies as to a maximum of what could be taken on to allow the growth in the 3 municipalities going forward.
Okay, thank you.
And sorry, yeah, the additional would have to be taken on by the Water Reclamation Center, so it was factored into that.
So that means the
solution.
Newmarket at that point will be at their build out in that one.
Related to those projects and any of those expenditures for the infrastructure in Newmarket and, well, in Newmarket, yeah, that they would reach their point. That's their trigger point for that, for those projects and that growth.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Roy DiClemente.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr. Rubbo. I'll start out with just a point of clarification. I just want to make sure that the Queensville Holland Landing share an interim sanitary and water servicing strategy is actually what we've also been calling the York-Durham sewage solution, the YDSS. I want to make sure that we're talking about the same things.
Okay, so there's 3 components. There's the YDSS, which is the York-Durham sewage system, and that includes everything that basically takes sewage from a little bit of East Gwillimbury right now, but Newmarket, Aurora, Markham, takes it down to the Duffin Creek Water Pollution Control Plant. And as you tie into that system, you will become part of the YDSS. So the Upper York sewage solution is essentially referring to the water reclamation facility that's being constructed and the additional infrastructure that's going to be built, twinning the existing York-Durham sewage system. So the interim solution is part of expanding the YDSS into East Gwillimbury. Mm-hmm. So that's going to address that component. And then the Upper York sewage solution will address the further component, and we'll also have some addition to YDSS within Newmarket.
So through you to clarify, what our community has come to describe the first phase of growth is what we call the YDSS, which will take us to about 2018, which is, I think it's up to 7,000 units with conservation measures in place. Anything beyond that is subject to the UYSS. And I just want to make sure that we're clear about that, because I think I've seen some changes in nomenclature, and I want to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing.
That statement is correct.
Thank you. Further, Madam Mayor, through you, you noted that you've commissioned this through 7 contracts, and they are all sort of targeted for spring 2015. I guess what I'd like to hear at this point is they're well underway. We've all seen the big holes in the ground. You've got some great pictures here for us. Are they on schedule? Are they on budget? And can you tell us? If you've given, obviously you've got the contracts in place. Are we talking early spring 2015? Are we talking late spring 2015? Do we have a clearer date?
So I think it'd be safe to say we'd want to go with late Q2, late spring, into summer 2015. With any contract, anything could happen. We saw the winter we had last year. To say it would be early spring would be would not happen. So it will be later in Q2, and depending on anything that happened, could be into the summer slightly. But we are on schedule. I mean, we're talking about a couple months here, play that could happen. I'm pretty comfortable saying that. In terms of budget, yes, we are on budget, but again, things do happen over construction that could impact costs. But at this point, we are standing to the budget that in the numbers in the presentation today.
That's great to hear, Mr. Rubbo. Thank you. If I may, one further? Yes, go ahead. This one's a little bit further along with respect to the UYSS. You mentioned earlier that you're going forward with an engineering consultant to do some detailed design. I just wanted to ensure that while you're going through that process and you're showing it as 2014 to 2018 through your implementation, that you are including our staff and important stakeholders in some of those design considerations, in particular to ensure that land use compatibility is taken into consideration, as well as input from our staff from that perspective.
I can make that short. Absolutely.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions also, and I'll reference the slides. Slide number 5 was the one that you had the Holland Landing, Queensville, and Sharon pumping station. And I just wanted to receive clarification. There's $140 million on the three of them collectively. Is that correct?
The 140 million is for all the projects, including the linear and the waterworks. So everything on that slide is basically the 140 million.
So when we talk about interim, my understanding is that the pumps that are in there are going to be heading south to take our sewage treatment to Duffin. And then when the new system is in place, these pumps will actually be reversed and they'll be heading north to the Water Reclamation Center. Is that a simple way of putting it?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. I mean, the pumps themselves are just adding pressure to the system, and you can direct it any way you want it. Right now, it's always going to be directed out to the second concession. For now, it's going to come south, and then we can allow it to go north to the Reclamation Center.
And the 140 million is not money that we're going to have to add to this. This is a project now that will work both ways without adding a great deal to it. It's not money that we're going to see not well used after the pumps change and head the other way.
No, this solution is incorporated into the ultimate Upper York sewage solution. So pending a completed EA, the water reclamation facility will utilize all this infrastructure, including the flows that go south to the York-Durham sewage system.
And the one closest to the bottom, the red dot, while it's on the second concession, that actually is the Sharon pump. Is that correct?
We call that the second concession sewage pumping station.
Okay, and is that for the one from Sharon? Because just north of that, the routing goes into Sharon.
Right, so the Sharon trunk will come down, so the sewage will flow by gravity over to second concession, gravity into that pumping station, and for now it'll be pumped south to the Newmarket pumping station, and the ultimate solution will reverse that and it'll pump north to the Reclamation Center.
Okay, thank you. A question that has been asked of me many times, I have no idea what the answer is. How deep are these pumps? I know you've got some pictures there, and it seems like there's an awful lot of dirt piled up, so there must be a long way down. How deep is it? And are you finished digging down the depth yet?
I can tell you that we're finished digging down because we have the shoring systems in place. The lowest elevation on our 20 meters? Yeah,
20
I can get you an exact depth, but yeah, so I mean, you allow it to flow down, and then essentially you pump it up to move it, and that's kind of how it works. Yeah, but yeah, you get some pretty deep shafts.
A lot of people are traveling past and seeing it and wondering just how deep is this really going to go? So
Yeah.
it's as deep as it is right now then. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of Mr. Rabeau? Not at this time, but we may call you back up later on.
Not a problem.
Okay. And with that, who will be the second presenter?
Thank you, Mayor Haxon, members of council. My name is Stephen Collins, and I'm York Region's Manager of Capital Delivery in the Transportation and Community Planning Department. So I am sort of on the transportation side what Mike and Brian Wolf are on the environmental services side. With me tonight, I'll just sort of forward, no problem. Excuse me, there we are. With me tonight, I've got Brian Titherington. He's our Director of Roads. Part of his portfolio is the capital delivery section of transportation. And Mark Nicolak, who I'm sure many of you members know, has been our Senior Project Manager, not only for the second concession improvements, but for the Doan Road improvements and a lot of the consultation that has taken place for our work in East Willenbury. Tonight, presentation overview, I'm going to be talking to a large extent about the transportation improvements that are underway in East Gwillimbury. And in order to do that, I want to spend a bit of time setting the context for what the transportation problem or the types of travel demand growth there is going to be. Talk about some of our current construction activities, some of the pre-construction activities that we have underway in order to get us in a state of readiness for future projects. What we refer to as our pavement rehabilitation or maintaining our system in a state of good repair program. These are really keeping what we have in good shape. Traffic management and communications plans. We are moving into some fairly significant construction, impactful construction on the road network, and some of the traffic management communications that are going to be taking place to deal with some of the concerns that are going to be expressed by our residents, and a bit of a summary and some next steps. So as far as growth in the Queensville, Hall, Landing, and Sharon communities, I don't need to tell this council it is going to grow. The numbers that we are now using to forecast the population employment really have the current 2011 numbers increasing by 3.5 to 4.5 times what we have today to the build out in 2031. And really what that means is the communities of Queensville, Hall, Landing, and Sharon are growing. Part of what this will result in is a significant demand for travel in the southbound direction during the AM peak, and for a corresponding demand in travel in the northbound direction in the PM peak hour. And so what we're looking at here is the growth in travel demand that's going to happen between 2011 and 2031. And so when you take a look at the Leslie Street, 404, Woodbine Avenue, what we refer to as a screen line, so the section across that, the communities are going to generate about 170 to 200% increase in the demand for travel in that southbound direction in the morning. And across the Bathurst Street, Yonge Street, and Second Concession area, there's going to be about a 30 to 40% increase. So really what we're looking at is a fairly significant demand of people wanting to get from those growing communities of Queensville, Hall, Landing, and Sharon down to some of the employment land uses that are going to be located along Green Lane and the 404 corridor, but also to those key transportation corridors being the 404, the GO Rail service, and the expanding transportation, York Region Transit transportation network. Planning for growth. York Region is doing it as are our local municipalities. So we've got our York Region Transportation Master Plan. It was completed in 2009, and we're about to embark on an update to that strategy and that plan. East Gwillimbury has their master plan that's been completed, and I know that East Gwillimbury staff are moving on implementing that plan. Our staff at York Region are starting to participate in some of the environmental assessments that are underway, and so we'll make sure that those are well coordinated with the regional infrastructure projects that are going to be happening in that area as well. We've got some active construction projects that are underway, namely Bathurst Street. Second Concession is just getting underway. We've got the Doan Road Interchange project, which is something that we've partnered with the Ministry of Transportation on. They are doing the initial phase of the construction for us, and the region will come back at a later time and do the finishing, paving, and opening of the interchange. The 404 extension, a lot of discussion about the timing for the opening of that, and it is under construction right now. And a upcoming project or future project for York being Queensville Side Road. York Region's roads construction program. So this is something that I just wanted to spend a minute acknowledging that it has changed significantly between 2013 and 2014. And we do recognize that this is causing concern for a lot of our stakeholders, not the least of which is East Gwillimbury, the Council of East Gwillimbury, your residents, and some of the landowners in the area. We are mindful, and we really do appreciate that as soon as our changed program came to your attention, you brought your concerns to our attention. So thank you to East Gwillimbury Council and the staff for bringing that to our attention. And really how it changed between 2013 and 2014 was quite a late decision on York staff and York Council. And unfortunately, there wasn't time to carry out a consultation, but that's not to say that it wouldn't have been very important to do that. And as part of our process moving forward, we are going to be ensuring that we have a very fulsome consultation with our local municipalities as we develop our ongoing annual 10-year capital program. There is a fairly significant investment that Transportation Services is making in the East Gwillimbury area. We've got a number of projects listed down to the left. These are all projects that are currently in the capital program. And the corresponding investments that are being made in those projects over the course of the next 2 years, the 3 to 5 year period, and then the balance of the 10-year program. So really what we've got is a fairly significant investment in the next 3 to 5 years, well, the next 0 to 5 years. And these investments are anywhere from the pre-engineering or pre-construction type activities of detailed design, engineering, property acquisition, utility relocations. And that's the case for the Doane Road 404 to Yonge Street improvements. We're getting that project into a state of readiness where when the construction is included in the 10-year program, we'll be ready to build it. And then we've got very significant investments in right down to the construction side on second concession. So that's a contract that is out there right now, and we're just getting underway on the construction. So in total, over the course of the 10-year period, we've got approximately $90 million of investments that are being made in the transportation infrastructure in East Gwillimbury. Activities, construction activities. We have some that are set to start, or even some that are set to resume. We've got our Bathurst Street North contract. We've got the South contract, and I'll explain a little bit about the split of those two projects in a minute. We've got second concession, which we've been before this council and presented lots of good information to you before. We've got Green Lane intersection improvements that are going to help deal with the traffic and the congestion during the second concession improvements. And they are going to be at second concession in Green Lane and Woodbine Avenue in Green Lane. So I mentioned the Bathurst Street North contract. In 2010, we completed an environmental assessment for Bathurst Street from Green Lane up to Highway 11, sort of the Holland Landing Road area. Really what the environmental assessment concluded was that we needed to reopen that link. It's a link in our network that had been closed since about 1996. And really from dealing with the significant growth in travel demand in that north-south area that I had mentioned, we really had to reconnect that link. So we completed a study and we embarked on and that was finished in 2010, and then we embarked on the detailed design. As we got into the detailed design, we had to complete some additional archaeological investigations. It was what's referred to as a phase 3 study and then a phase 4 study. And that was to address the discovery of an Aboriginal village site that we had found, and if you're familiar with the area, it's just sort of where the southern section of the roadway terminated before it went down into the hill. Having been out there a number of times, you can see why somebody would have picked that as an area to build a village. It was quite beautiful out there. And I've got some shots on the left here just of the archaeological investigations underway. Your eyes are not deceiving you. Those are actually drinking straws, and what the archaeologists use is a drinking straw to demark a location of a feature or something of interest that they need to document in their report. And what they will then do is go around and document all of these straws, and they can be anything from the discovery of an artifact, so an arrowhead, a piece of pottery, to something more like the decomposed portions of a post that would have been part of the structure. So they really mark everything out in the field, document it for the purposes of the reporting. That's a lot of words to say that when we did discover the Aboriginal village site, we decided that we didn't want this to affect the overall delivery of our project, so we separated the one project from Green Lane up to Highway 11 into two contracts. So what we're referring to is the North contract, which goes from sort of about 1.5 kilometers south of Highway 11 up to Highway 11, including the intersection. And then we have the South contract, which is really the contract that will reopen Bathurst Street. The South contract, and just on the North contract, construction began last year. Our contractor made some good progress working in very, very wet conditions out there. And we'll be moving into the intersection of Highway 11 and Bathurst Street this year to complete the work and really finish off the construction and get out of the way in the summer of 2014. The South contract, we had anticipated the archaeological work and the consultation with the various First Nations communities would take quite some time, including the clearance from the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport. However, that proceeded quite well. There was a lot of good work that our archaeological team did on that project, and we received clearance from the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport in February of this year that at least the section in which we are going to be building our road improvements is cleared of further archaeological concern. What that means is that we are now able to proceed with the construction of the road improvements. So having had the project forecasted for a construction start of 2016, we are taking a report to York Region Council this month, seeking their endorsement to actually advance the project and get the project started earlier than we had been planning under the original 2014 program. So what we are doing is we're actually acting out there now. We've recently completed some tree removal for utility relocations. Utility relocations are underway. And provided that Council does provide the endorsement of advancing the project, we do plan on starting the construction of the south contract in 2015 and actually have it completed in 2016, which is when we had been planning on starting it. So we're looking at advancing that and getting it completed and open to traffic. The second concession project, as many of you know, this is a growth project that we've been working on for quite some time now. It's a 4-lane widening from Green Lane up to Doane Road, and then it's a reconstruction from Doane Road to Queensville Side Road as a 2-lane road to meet current regional standards. We are completing the section from Green Lane down to Bristol Road, really to tie in the urbanization of Main Street north from Bristol Road up to the GO station, and really provide those pedestrian facilities that are necessary to encourage people to walk to the GO station. As part of the work, we have tendered and are going to be building a number of the water and sewer linear works along second concession, as they're referred, as part of our road construction contract. And we've got 2 major structures over the rail crossing and over the Rogers Reservoir as well. We are also building off-road cycling facilities as part of this project. So this is a slide that I know you've seen before. It is an artist rendering of what we are going to be building out there. And there's just a couple of highlights I want to provide for you, and it has to do with some of the comments that came when we were last before this committee in June of last year. So the first one is cycling access from both sides of second concession. We do have cycling facilities on the road level coming through the Rogers Reservoir location. And what the concern was is that we wanted to have cycling access from both sides of the road down to both sides in the Nikita Trail. So what we've done is we've got a ramp for northbound cyclists. We have a ramp that will take those northbound cyclists down to the Nikita Trail via a new bridge crossing, the Holland River. And for the southbound direction, we've got a change in the entrance configuration for the pumping station. It's now going to be a driveway that comes off of second concession, and what we are doing is building a bike facility as part of that driveway connection, and it will connect with the Nikita Trail down in this area. The Nikita Trail will cross underneath the structure, and those cyclists moving in the southbound direction will be able to access this section of the Nikita Trail without having to cross a live traffic lane. The other thing to point out here, and it has to do with this driveway access, is if you recall, there was an original concept to have a private crossing of the rail line just to the east of second concession, and that would be a driveway that would come down the east side of second concession underneath the structure, and it would provide access to the pumping station. There was some concerns with the private crossing in dealing with Metrolinx, the owner of the railway, and also some of the concerns about whistling, or the train whistling through the private crossing, and also dealing with the cycling facility connection. We did move to the driveway connection down to the pumping station. So we've eliminated the need for the private crossing, and we've accommodated the cycling connection. Part of what we're doing out there is building some enhanced retaining walls and some enhanced planting beds. So what you're looking at here is an elevation of the east side of the structure. So if you're standing on the east side of the Rogers Reservoir and looking towards second concession, this is an artist's rendering of what you would see. The upper section represents the retaining walls, the bridge opening at the river crossing, the cycling pedestrian bridge that's going to cross the watercourse, the bridge that's going to carry our traffic, our vehicle and cycling traffic, and then this is the pedestrian boardwalk that's more represented in this sort of plan perspective. We do have multiple projects underway. York staff will obviously work closely with East Gwillimbury staff and the residents to minimize disruption and nuisance. One of the things that, in my experience, we've always wanted to ensure is that sort of the softer services that our residents are getting, like mail service, waste collection, these sorts of things are well communicated, well coordinated, and that from a service to our residents, there really is sort of a seamless a change in how the service is being provided as we go through construction. So our contractors and our project staff will be working quite closely with the residents and East Gwillimbury staff to ensure that. We are in the process now of reviewing our 2015 10-year roads construction program. We're doing some initial internal work to reassess our priorities, and then there will be a very complete cycle and consultation with the local municipalities in York Region about their concerns, their issues, and some of the items that they would like to see in the capital program. And again, we will have ongoing consultations with East Gwillimbury staff as we move through our projects and our programming. That's it.
Thank you very much. Questions? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'll start with closest to where you left off and then work backwards.
Okay.
You were talking about soft services, things like mail and ensuring that residents aren't disrupted. And sometimes the rural roads that you're working on are fairly narrow, and there is not an awful lot in the beyond the ditch area. There's of course nowhere, it's not like a lawn in a subdivision where people can walk. The other thing that you have to consider as well is the children who get on school buses. They are not always picked up at their driveway, and they sometimes have to walk to a certain meeting location. And if they're walking when the road has become narrowed by half due to construction, there's often nowhere in a rural area for them to walk safely. And so I think it would be really good for our residents if you were aware, any road you go to do, who's on that road, who needs to go on a school bus. Does that bus come by and pick them up? Can that bus come by during the construction period? Or will they need some other way to get safely off the road?
Okay.
Going back to Doan Road, there's some construction going on there right now on the section between Yonge Street and Second Concession, and I think that council felt that the region would, I know you'd probably have to do repairs between now and when you were going to do the Doan Road, if you were going to do it, but you might have patched it along a little ways. And if you're not going to do the Doan Road for a considerable amount of time, that section is in extreme state of repair, and the residents who live on that road are having some difficulty right now traversing it. And spring thaw has certainly happened, and the road is still rough. Are you able to ensure that the construction, or that not so much reconstruction, but repair and maintenance is upped and more frequent in order to have the road last that length of time?
We are. One of the things that we factor into our decision making on the timing for major road expansion and major road improvements is what the costs to actually keep it in a state of good repair until we get there to do the major road expansion. So I mentioned as we cycle back in the coming months to look at our 2015 program, one of the things that we will be critically looking at is how much are we going to have to invest to keep Doan Road in a reasonable state of repair until the major project comes through. And that could influence the timing for that major project.
Mm-hmm. And it's possible that you received funds from the development that's taking place in that area for the reconstruction, and you weren't going to do anything until you got to the reconstruction, but now that things have changed, you're going to have to look at it. I would just tell you that it's a bit of a hot spot right now. It's broken up quite badly.
Okay.
I also would like to express that I'm still disappointed that the Doan Road has been removed from the long-term plans of the region. I appreciate all of the other roads and the expenditures that you're making, but unfortunately, choices of where development occurs is often trails along behind where we see the region is going to invest in infrastructure. And when you remove the road, the developers still want to go ahead and build there. And then we'll have the people that are unable to access a good road to get to where they want to go or to get to the 404. So that's the reason it disrupts me. If we just weren't getting ahead any faster, we had to slow down, calm down, that's okay. It's a rural area. We want to be a nice place to live. We want to have a place where everybody can enjoy that. But when development goes ahead, but it's missing one of its infrastructure links, it's very hard on all of the remaining residents, including the new residents. So that's the reason for my disappointment in that one. And also, Steve, I wanted to point out in one of your slides, you had the township of East Gwillimbury, and I wondered where that was. It's the town of East Gwillimbury.
I'm not
But then
entirely sure.
it was on a map about something from the long past, a long time ago. So perhaps you were just, you could say, you could get out of this by saying that you were just referring to the archaeological dig, and that's what it was called back then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Councillor Roy DiClemente?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr. Collins, I appreciated actually the distribution of the Great Streets newsletter, and I wondered, I received it by email from our staff. I wondered how far your net was cast when you distributed that newsletter, and part of this is something that may actually be from the other half of the room who are presenting to us, and that has to do with resident communication and the fact that the works that you're doing are on regional roads, and they are not just local residents who are being impacted, but there's residents from across the municipality and from outside our municipality who are using those roads. So for example, the project on Yonge Street, just north of Bradford Street, in the village of Holland Landing, that took quite a few people by surprise by having it cut down to one lane and having the timed traffic lights there. I live in Sharon, but I was trying to get to the library, and I had no idea that this was going to be happening, or to anticipate having to add in a few more minutes to my travel time to anticipate that. So I guess, and I'm not sure whether this is something for you or for your other half or for both of you, but to talk a little bit more about casting your net as wide as possible to make sure that people have access to the quality information that you are distributing, and so that people know what to expect. And ultimately, to be honest about how disruptive it is, because people see it and they know it.
Yeah.
But if you try to hide it, you're not going to get the same kind of buy-in from our residents that people understand that you have a job to do. But if they know that it's going to happen, then my hope is that you would be able to cast your net as wide as possible. So if you're doing hard copy distribution and you're already taking the time and money to send it to a small group, cast your net a little wider with Canada Post perhaps, and send that further. I wonder, if I may, Madam Mayor, through you to Mr. Collins, if you could speak a little bit more about the improvements at Second Concession and Green Lane, or to talk a little bit more about what's happening on Green Lane. I think every person that I've spoken to in this municipality rages about the afternoon peak time on Green Lane and trying to head westbound. And I understand that regional staff have worked with the signalization both at the GO station and at Second Concession, and have tweaked it as much as possible, and that the only thing left is to add additional capacity. I think it would be really helpful if we were able to communicate what that additional westbound lane will look like, how far it will extend, whether you're just going to end up with people clipping each other's bumpers as they try to cut back into traffic to go westbound, and to understand a little bit more what the additional signalization control will be able to give you. If you've already tried to fiddle with that signalization, how much more enhancements can you put into that system? And maybe you could speak to that,
Okay.
please.
Through Madam Mayor. Unfortunately, I don't have a graphic showing the planned improvements, but I'll try and do the best I can to explain in words what we're hoping to achieve out there. So the afternoon PM peak period is congested, but one of the real problems is trying to get traffic through the signal in the westbound direction. There's only so much green time that can be allocated to the westbound move before the other directions start to break down. And so what we are looking at or what we did look at, is optimizing the timing of the current signal system that we have out there, and we've done that. The next step is to add capacity to get cars through the intersection. We don't have a problem with capacity leaving the intersection, so between Second Concession and Yonge Street, or the traffic signal at the commercial plaza. So really the 4-lane road that we have through that section is sufficient to carry the traffic that we have. Really what we can't do is we can't get enough traffic through the Second Concession intersection in the westbound direction. So we are adding the 3rd westbound lane. It is effectively a right turn lane on the east side of Second Concession, and it will be a sort of a merge lane on the west side. Those sound like very small lengths, but we're looking at about 500 to 600 meters on either side of the intersection. So by the time we're done, it'll be about 1 kilometer of additional travel lane. That is expected to help get traffic through the intersection in the westbound direction. And then once it's through the intersection, the analysis shows that there is sufficient distance in that 500 to 600 meters for vehicles to merge after leaving the intersection into the traffic that will be leaving into the adjacent through lane. Okay? So the analysis shows that we aren't going to have the issue of bumpers clipping because we're providing sufficient distance for vehicles to accelerate to the speed of the roadway and merge over safely. Okay.
Go ahead.
So just to round out the discussion, the Centrex traffic signal controller upgrade is a system that is being implemented across the region. We're using it on a lot of our bus rapid transit corridors down in the south end along Highway 7. And really what it does is it allows us to monitor traffic and adjust the signal timings for consecutive traffic control signals to ensure that the operation of the traffic control signal at Leslie Street is timed in such a way as to not disrupt or impact the traffic control signal at Second Concession and not impact the downstream traffic control signal. See, the one thing we want to do is ensure that all of our traffic signals are talking to each other or coordinated with each other to ensure that the right amount of traffic is being let through the Leslie Street intersection so that it arrives and is not in a significant queue or congestion at the Second Concession intersection. So what we want to do is we want to pace out all of that traffic, and the signal controller upgrade is going to allow us to do those sorts of things on a real-time basis.
Thank you for that explanation. I think that's very helpful, Mr. Collins. When can residents expect that this perhaps approximately 1 kilometer of relief will be in place?
So we are working with Environmental Services. They are building it on our behalf as part of one of their projects, and we are looking at having it done and in place by early July. So it will be there and ready for the a temporary closure of Second Concession.
That's wonderful. I think people will be happy to hear that. Okay. You talked a little bit at the beginning of your presentation about percentage increases on southbound on the southbound axis. Is there your future modeling? Is there looking at a potential increase on your east-west axis as well? As you may be aware, we're undertaking a secondary plan process along Green Lane, and we're doing an EA for an east-west collector just north of that. And so I think that if there are additional traffic models that are showing increased capacity or demand for that east-west axis, that it would be helpful if that was informed, because as you know, we've already got capacity issues on that road. Yeah. And if we're going to be adding things to that stretch of road, which is right now open fields and woods, that certainly would play into our planning processes. So is there an anticipated future demand that you've identified?
There is, and we haven't studied it in detail to an environmental assessment stage yet, but our upcoming master plan update will be looking at sort of not only sort of the increases in north-south travel demand, but also east-west travel demand in this area.
Councillor Morton.
Thank you. I just want to go back to Mr. Collins on the lights, the traffic signals. I'm assuming, and perhaps I shouldn't do this, but but are the traffic signals synchronized from Yonge Street over to how far? If you're traveling east on Green Lane? And what is the timing that allows the number of cars that should actually get through those lights before they change?
Okay, so it's sort of a two-part answer. So yes, all of the signals are coordinated, and they're coordinated along Green Lane. The problem is that they can't be adjusted in real time, so they are coordinated for what our normal daytime expectations are as traffic changes throughout the day. So the signals in the afternoon peak period, if the predominant move is for traffic to flow westerly from Leslie Street to Second Concession to Yonge, the signals would be timed for the expected traffic that comes out of Leslie Street and the amount of time it will take to travel to Second Concession, and then the Second Concession signal will be set up and timed according to those vehicles arriving. But as soon as something changes or there's something happens out there, there isn't an opportunity for our traffic control center to modify and adjust the traffic control signals on a real-time basis to account and reflect for that.
Just further to that, Madam Mayor, so then the traffic signal at the GO station, the signal there would be traffic actuated instead of on a timing basis? Like, with the cars coming out of the GO center, would they automatically trigger the change of the traffic signals?
So they wouldn't automatically trigger the change of the signals. There would be an expectation, and essentially there are sensors in the pavement. So when a vehicle is there and hits the sensor, it tells the traffic control signal that the vehicle's there waiting to make the turn. So it adjusts the timing for the vehicle to come out into the traffic. That's conventional, that's out there right now, it's happening. What we really need is to have the real-time traffic control so that as things are happening and things change out there, our traffic control center staff can adjust the signal timings to reflect and try and get the traffic moving.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Eaton?
Thank you very much. I believe it's on slide number 22. You talked about the southbound traffic increasing by 30 to 40%. Is that a result of the growth that's going to be happening in Holland Landing, or have you also taken into consideration the growth that's taking place in Bradford?
That's the growth within York Region. So that would be the Queensville, Holland Landing, Sharon growth and sort of the background growth that's happening in York.
But that doesn't include Bradford, then okay, that brings my second question, because Green Lane seems to be the hot topic that everybody's concerned about. Okay. With the province eliminating the 400-404 bypass road, people in Bradford have really only one choice, Highway 400, if that suits the direction they want to go. But if they want to get over to the 404, the only way they can go is across Green Lane. And as you improve Bathurst, you're going to have the people coming down Bathurst Street across Green Lane. That is becoming a main intersection road right through the middle of our community, and it's actually a major highway for people that are transitioning from the 404 over into Bradford. So I don't know whether any consideration is being given to that as far as traffic studies are concerned in the future, because I foresee that as being an issue. We've already talked about the traffic jamming now. We haven't even seen any growth in East Gwillimbury. When that happens, if there isn't future planning for that, I think we're going to be faced with a lot of issues. If GO Transit also increases the frequency of their GO trains, as they are anticipating to do, on weekends they're doing that now during the summertime, but looking out 10 or 15 years, that train track is going to become very active, and I don't know whether there's any thought being put into doing an overpass or an underpass where the railroad tracks are, because we know what happens in Newmarket with the railway station there. The traffic's lined up all the way past the hospital because of the train tracks. So those are major projects, I realize, and expensive, but I think they're very important to be looked at as we move forward with the growth. You have to take into account what's happening west of us and why people are going in that direction and GO Transit.
I see you making notes.
Oh, I am.
I have a couple of questions as well. I've waited until the rest of council members. One interest that I have is regarding the Aboriginal village site, and it's completed now, I understand. Is there going to be any recognition of that there? What is a standard response in a community once you've done the archaeological digs and it's complete?
It's a good question. There is no standard. We have a variety or a number of these sites at various locations within York Region. The one that I guess is most affected, or the one that is most integral into York Region's land and York Region's property, is the Teston Site Ossuary. It's a sort of Aboriginal burial site that was discovered back in 2005, 2006. And really, when we were dealing with the First Nations communities on that, there was little interest to demarc and sort of commemorate the actual location, the actual site. It's not something that we understand as part of the heritage and the belief sort of on the burials. For the village site on Bathurst Street, we are going to be working with the archaeologist and the First Nations communities, most notably the Huron-Wendat, who seem to have the closest ancestral relationship with this village, to understand what their wishes are. And given the fact that the village site is sort of located not only within our property or within the region's road right-of-way, but also on both sides, there are sections of this village site that have not been uncovered or have not been investigated. So there may be some follow-up sort of archaeological investigations that are done to better understand the full extent of what was discovered here, as opposed to just the section that was in the impacted area by the roadway. But we haven't gotten to the point of having those discussions yet. So it is really, there is no standard as to what's done, and we're still talking with our archaeologists and the First Nations communities.
I would urge you to work with our staff as well.
Okay.
As you know, we're a community that really celebrates our heritage.
Yep.
We don't have heritage to this extent that we're aware of, and I think it would be important for us to celebrate this heritage find, if I can call it that we need to recognize it. And while we talk about the Sharon Temple and our roots in the community, this goes back a lot further, and I think it would be important to keep that in mind as we start to move forward. That was one of my comments. Another one was regarding the double turn lanes at Woodbine going eastbound. And I'm wondering, my impression always was that people were getting off the 404 and going eastbound. And so now with the imminent opening of the 404, my expectation would be that there wouldn't be as many from the 404 over to Woodbine, because they in fact would be getting off at the Queensville Side Road or even heading further north to Ravenshoe. So could you tell me a bit about the traffic studies in that? Do you have an idea of the number of cars that I know it's a crystal ball, but we'll be taking the 404, and perhaps we've been talking quite a bit about Green Lane, giving some relief to the Green Lane because they're moving further north on the 404?
So the intersection improvements at Woodbine, the eastbound double left, that's something that we see as being needed while second concession is closed, notwithstanding the fact that we're coordinating the timing of the closure of second concession with the opening of the 404 extension. So yes, there will be a reduction in traffic coming off the 404 and wanting to go northbound on Woodbine, but we are expecting to see an increase in the traffic wanting to go up Woodbine that's coming from the Newmarket area, and perhaps not going as far north as need be, or perhaps even going further to the east. And the 404 extension would not be a suitable choice for them. And really what this does is it because they won't be able to turn left or to go north at second concession, we're going to discourage them from using Leslie Street as a route to bypass the second concession closure. If the 404 is not a roadway that's suitable for them to use, they will be making that left turn at Woodbine. So we want to make sure that we're providing as high a level of service as possible at that location. So even though we are changing the conditions, that being there won't be the 404 traffic, we want to provide a very, very high level of service to discourage those people from going elsewhere.
Thank you. You were talking about some changes at the second concession and in Green Lane. And I know that we've had discussions at the region in the past about it, but I want to emphasize it again, that particularly the eastbound traffic that makes a left-hand turn onto the second concession, the sight lines are very poor there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the engineering studies had indicated, but it would seem to me that there needs to be some major work on sight lines for people making left-hand turns. It's not good.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. During the road construction, we've got a lot going on. Particularly now, we're seeing trees coming down and whatever. Can you talk to us about what happens when the roads have curb and gutter and they have bicycle lanes and 4 lanes across, and we've lost all of our, I'm going to call them heritage trees for the lack of a better word, but our trees that provided a canopy for us. What are the regional plans for landscaping and replacing trees?
So part of what we need to do to widen these roads is unfortunately remove existing trees, and a lot of the trees that are on our properties are mature and they're old. And unfortunately, they can't be relocated and salvaged. And so what we do from a compensation and planting standpoint in terms of trying to replace the function that those trees provided, we know that we're not going to be able to do it immediately. But what we try and do is address some of the function that they provide by planting more trees. So typically we'll increase the number of trees we plant for each tree we take down. Some rules of thumb that we use are the diameter of the larger tree that we take down. We plant trees of smaller diameter, a number of trees that would be required to equal that larger diameter. So there's a higher density of planting. The region is, and regional council, to their credit, are very, very strong advocates of sort of the green initiatives and sort of minimizing our footprint, if I can refer to it that way. And so our practice is only to take down the trees that we absolutely need to take down. I know that Mark Nicolak has been out there as recently as today and yesterday dealing with landowners about tree removal and, you know, how can we slightly modify our construction practices in order to try and save a tree. We're not saying we can save it, but we're saying we're going to work around it. And if things happen well, I shouldn't say well, because well implies that we're going to do the construction well. Of course we will. But if things happen in such a way that we don't damage the root system and all of those sorts of things, then the tree will stay. So our practice is to try and maintain all of the trees we possibly can.
Our residents, we all recognize that with new construction of roadways and widenings, trees were planted on the edge of a single lane road, and now it's going to be a double lane road. So we certainly understand that, but how they're replaced and recognized, certainly the idea of the diameter of a tree would equal how many more that you would plant. And I think that's what people are looking for, is while we've lost that canopy today, that it's not going to be gone indefinitely. And I would hope that the trees will be planted in a variety of sizes, not all the same, that they will grow accordingly. Another question that I had, and I'm not sure if you were involved with it or not, was we were looking forward to having a signalized intersection at the Sharon Public School on Leslie Street this spring, and it hasn't happened. We understand now that it's going to be summertime And unfortunately for the school buses and the children, they'll be out of school, so it's beyond the time now. But I'm just wanting to make sure that it's on the radar and that by the time the children arrive back in September and the construction in Sharon is full speed ahead, that those lights are there for safety for our parents, the school buses, and the children that will inevitably be able to walk once the sidewalks are in place. So,
Unfortunately, I can't provide an update on that, but I will take that back, and we can commit to providing East Gwillimbury staff with an update on the status of that project.
be good. I don't think I have anything else right now. Councillor Morton.
Madam Mayor, I have one more question, and it actually doesn't pertain to Hollow Landing, Sharon, or Mount Albert, and actually it would be a question for Mr. Rabeau. So, Mr. Collins, you're off the hot seat
I
here.
wonder if we can just finish with, and then Mr. Rabeau may come back for a variety of others. Can we finish transportation first
Sure.
before?
I'm sorry, I didn't realize there was any other
Yeah,
questions.
I'm not sure there wasn't, so, okay. Not gone yet. One more anyway. Yeah, you tried. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to further comment and/or ask a question about the archaeological site on Bathurst Street. It wasn't fully clear to me. Was that the portion that was discovered where the road bed is going to be? Was it documented and removed? Or is it being built over? What exactly is happening to that? You alluded to the fact that this site may actually be much more extensive, and I think, based on what the mayor said, and I would echo that, it certainly warrants discovery and celebration and acknowledgement of what's there. But I just wanted to make sure that I understood what the plan is for it's not that we built the road around it. We're still building it through that former village, but what's happened to those artifacts? And as a secondary question, I know we've discussed this briefly. It was my understanding that site wasn't necessarily very secure, and so that it was pretty much left out to the open, and that if there was any danger of people coming in and perhaps, I don't want to say the word looting, but that's the only one that comes to mind, but that people would be going through there and perhaps destroying something that might be fragile and important, or taking it home as a souvenir or a trophy. We want to make sure that what's there is secure, I guess, is the best way of putting it. So there's sort of a two-part comment there.
Okay, so I'll try and be brief on this. So I mentioned that we went through a Phase 3 investigation and then a subsequent Phase 4 investigation. What a Phase 4 investigation means is that all of the artifacts that are there, all of the features of the ground that are of archaeological significance are documented, removed from the site, and the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport then declares the site clear of further archaeological concern. And so if you think about what we're planning on doing out there, our original right-of-way was on the order of 20 meters wide, and that right-of-way bisected the village site. We're widening on both sides of the road to make the road wider and also to deal with some of the slopes that are going to be for the road embankments. And it's to those limits, which are the future regional right-of-way, that we have undertaken the Phase 4 investigation. So we have cleared from right-of-way limit to right-of-way limit of further archaeological concern. We haven't disturbed the land beyond that. So we don't know what would be underneath the ground in terms of the extension of the village site or any other archaeologically significant features that might be there. And so from a looting standpoint, the fact that all of the area that has been disturbed or that will be disturbed as part of the construction has been documented and cleared of archaeological concern means that all of those artifacts have been removed.
Are there any other questions, Mr. Collins? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, we'll go back and see if there's anything else that we haven't covered that people would like to question, and I believe Councillor Morton has one item. Go ahead.
Mr. Rabeau. Mr. Webster touched on something very quickly at our last public meeting on a concern that I knew about over in Mount Albert, and that's the limitation or the issue of the potential water limitations or allocations that could potentially affect the planned development slated for Mount Albert. And I'm just wondering if you could clear that up for other members of council that maybe did not know about it. And certainly for me on where it's going and how long it's going to take, and will it affect the development that is planned for that area?
Okay, so I'm not particular on the planned development, but the capacity constraint there is at the water pollution control plant. So it's a wastewater capacity issue. The plant in Mount Albert was designed for about 6,000 people. That's the rated capacity of the plant. We have performed studies at that plant, and the 6,000 capacity, 6,000 people, is the standing capacity. We will not be able to put more flow through that plant without upgrades. What those upgrades are, we'd have to study that a bit further. If the works could be subject to an environmental assessment and further planning requirements. So at 6,000 people, right now, based on, I think, the town's numbers that we last checked, there's approximately just short of 1,000 people that haven't been allocated to that plant. I think the number is like 966 people, roughly. So that's what remains. That equates to plus or minus 300 units. I'm not sure exactly what. So that's essentially what remains in terms of capacity at that plant, subject to any further expansion or upgrade, which is not in the plans. And that all parallels any planning processes and approvals of community plan, official plan, et cetera.
So just further to that, Madam Mayor, so this goes back to then possibly the original Mount Albert plan, where one of the development that was planned just off the Mount Albert side road was a lot less at that time than what the new plans coming in are. That's when the allocation or the numbers for the population would have been decided on when the water reclamation plant, or when the plant was put in.
Yeah, when the plant was put in, it would have been done through our master planning process in terms of projecting required capacity. That would have been based on, obviously, the provincial planning places to grow, the regional official plan, and the community plans for East Gwillimbury. So based on those projections and plans, the plant capacity would have been established through that master planning document and then followed up in our 10-year infrastructure plan.
So will the region be following that up in the near future, or is that something that's not on the horizon right now?
Right now, it's not on the horizon. We are going through our master planning update. We're going through basically a full municipal comprehensive review. I'm not sure how that parallels with your planning process. So any future work to that plant would have to be addressed through the master plan, your community planning, and then addressed in the DC bylaw to fund the infrastructure upgrades, et cetera. So at this point, I don't believe that there's a planned expansion there, and that would be subject to, again, the planning processes as the first stage for triggering a master plan and the actual infrastructure upgrade.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
No problem.
I know we have some people in the audience that have participated for the last couple of years in discussion about the water reclamation plant. And we've had a lot of meetings, and I'm just wondering if you could just take a few minutes and go over a little more detail on the water reclamation plant, on the timing of the site itself, where we're going from here, what role the regional council plays, what role we play in this, and just so people can hear from the region who are leading this project.
Absolutely. So the Upper York Sewage Solution Project, when it began, I think it was a consideration to look at three alternatives. It was, typically you look at the do-nothing alternative, so not address growth, which conventionally is not done. We were going to address the the required plans, the provincial plans. One solution was to send sewage to the York-Durham sewage system, which eventually would be treated at the Duffin Creek Water Pollution Control Plant, released to Lake Ontario. And then the other solution was a Lake Simcoe plant solution. That would be a conventional plant on Lake Simcoe. Now, with some of the Lake Simcoe planning and some of the provincial legislation that's come out not allowing any more plants on Lake Simcoe, the minister essentially added a fourth alternative through the EA process to say, let's look at innovative solutions within York Region, within the northern part of York Region, and the Lake Simcoe Basin. So it was added as a fourth alternative. Going through the EA process through staff and establishing all the alternatives, which are social impacts, economic impacts, and then environmental impacts. This solution came out as the preferred solution to put in a water reclamation center, which includes state-of-the-art treatment technologies, membrane technology, reverse osmosis, and really ups the bar in terms of wastewater treatment and phosphorus removal, which is a clear mandate for Lake Simcoe. So it's really taking the services we provide and taking it to the next step over and above any sort of plant that's on the lake right now. So this allows us to provide a in-York solution for York. It will address the servicing requirements north of the Bloomington Divide, so the Lake Simcoe Divide and water basin. Regional Council has been very supportive of this environmental assessment and this process over the last 5 to 6 years, getting us to this point. We've tried to work very closely with all the municipalities, and mainly the northern municipalities, including East Gwillimbury, to address some of the needs and requirements for this project. And we'll continue along through the design in that manner, including working with this council and updating you regularly and as required to ensure you're in line with what's happening and the implications to your community. So going forward, as we file this IEA, the intent is, again, hopefully to get an approval, subject to any, underlying issues that, may be brought forward that haven't been covered off. But our intent and what we feel we've done is addressed all those issues to date. They will be put into the IEA, filed, and we'll be pursuing the design in parallel with this, the filing of the final IEA, and hopefully moving forward with construction in 2016 and looking to be complete and ready to commission in 2018.
Thank you. I know that there were many discussions. I don't mean to go off onto one area, but I do know that there's a number of people here that participated in many of the meetings, and there were discussions about odor and the discussions about the number of vehicles and the warm water that was going to go into the river that would pose some issues for recreational facilities and even the routing across the Queensville side road, because that's a busy community for us. Part of our Queensville community is right on the Queensville side road. So can you let me know what has happened? And I'm just talking in general terms. I know that following this meeting, we'll have an opportunity with the people that are in the audience if they're looking for very specifics. But just generally, each one of those, and I know that there were many others, Mr. Wolf was at a lot of the meetings as well. There was quite a list of concerns that people had with the design and whatever. And could you just quickly outline for me the kinds of things that have happened with those that now they've got, so you are moving forward with the EA, and how did you address those in general terms? Okay, and I may invite Brian Wolf to speak a little more in more detail, or we can speak after the meeting as well with any individuals. In terms of odor, as we go through the detailed design, we'll be working to establish very stringent controls for odor control and the way we handle air and any hydrogen sulfide and other gases that are released as part of the treatment. Brian, perhaps you want to speak to some of the technology we'll be using for odor control at the plant, or is that still subject to kind of the design process?
Well, we are going to be covering the odor control of the plant. Right now, the specification that we have is one odor unit at the property line, and that's an MOE spec that we have to adhere to.
Okay. And I would suspect that I've done a lot of research, as I know other members of council have here, on these cutting-edge facilities that we first heard about 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and it really was new, and you had trouble getting information on exactly what they were all about. But it seems now this isn't quite as new. While it's new in Ontario and somewhat in Canada, there are some that are up and running for quite a period of time. So I would hope that if they had issues, they've sorted them out, and that we will benefit from being the second generation of this technology.
Absolutely. Odor control is becoming a standard part of the business in terms of dealing with sewage solutions. We've put in a lot of different biofilters and air handling systems in a lot of different places, including linear infrastructure, so sewers, as well as in facilities. So we will be committed to sustaining that one unit at the property line through the EA, which, as Brian said, is mandated, and the air handling system and the odor handling system and treatment system will be delivered to meet that criteria and sustain that criteria. To your point on effluent at the river, you'd mentioned temperatures. I know that's been a concern, and we're committed to monitoring that location to see how the temperatures change over time, and if they do change over time. And we do understand that there were some recreational uses for that area, and we are committed, as discussed in the past, to trying to establish a backup or a retrofit for that activity that was going on there. It was a skating rink or something. So alternatives to that are subject to this IEA or collected into this IEA.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Sorry, we weren't really on that, but I think it's really important. It's been something that has been, we as a municipality have been very involved with many meetings. Every member of council has been out, and many residents wanting to learn about what this was all about. So it would be it would be wrong if we didn't talk about that tonight as well. So I appreciate that very much. Are there any other questions? Wow, I don't see any other questions at this time. I want to thank you very much. Really appreciate Mr. Rabeau for you coming out, Mr. Collins, and Mr. Tarrington and Mr. Nicolak. We really appreciate you being here tonight. As I said earlier, this video will be put on our website. Our clerk has been busy taking minutes, so there will be our discussion that will be recorded, as well as the opportunity for questions that I'll ask if there are questions from people who have been here tonight to send them in to us. We do have a person, as I said earlier, on staff from the region that is here every Thursday now to work on a lot of the projects here. We have about $90 million worth of projects based on my mathematics that are taking place in East Gwillimbury in the next several years, and with it there will be a lot of wonderful things that are going to happen in East Gwillimbury. There's going to be a lot of growth. There's also going to be frustrations from people because everybody that moved here wants to be the last one that moved in. And I'm one of them, I'm sure, same as everyone else, but we know that there is progress coming. We recognize it, and we want to work and make sure that we can mitigate any concerns that we have for our residents. So I want to thank you very much for being here tonight and helping work through that process with us. And thank you to our staff also. I have a motion moved by Councillor Morton, seconded by Councillor Roy DeClemente. Do you have a question? Oh, you were leaning forward, so I just...
If it's divided, otherwise I'll just not vote.
Okay. Be it resolved that the York Region staff presentation providing a York Region sanitary water and transportation servicing update be received.
And the clerk will note that I am not voting for that.
Okay. You have declared an interest on that? Yes.
Course.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Not that you're just not voting. There's a reason. All those in favor? And that's carried. Second resolution I have is moved by Councillor Roy D. Clemente, seconded by Councillor Morton. Be it resolved that a bylaw 2014-074, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the special council meeting held on May 12, 2014, be taken as read and acted and signed by the mayor and municipal clerk. All those in favor? And that's carried. And the last item I have is a motion moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Eaton. Be it resolved that the special meeting of municipal council adjourn at 8:45 p.m. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much for all of our residents to be out here tonight. We really do appreciate it. And I would ask if our guests may be able to hover around a little bit. If there might be a couple of individual questions, we'd really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. Safe driving home.